if you've got kids, you stand up for their future, and it's them that counts, you know. It's not about me, it's about everybody else, because what are we? We're sociable animals, human beings, we're sociable creatures. And it's your love for your fellow man and woman that counts. If you don't have that compassion in your life and you can't express it, what freedom have we got?
This is Callum Smiles, Rebel News, here in Glasgow, covering the case of the then local councillor, Paddy Hogg, who was arrested back in 2020 for breaking COVID rules. Now cast your mind back to September 2020. Lockdowns were in full swing with hardcore overzealous policing. Masks were everywhere. People were being fined left, right and centre, and you couldn't even walk down the street without stickers dotted all over the pavement telling you where to walk and where to stand. The COVID hysteria was everywhere. So what did our elected representatives do? Well, the vast majority did nothing but toe party lines. However, Paddy Hogg, who was then the local councillor for Cumbernauld East, just outside of Glasgow, decided to stand up for his electorate and for what he thought was right. He attended many demonstrations, for example in Edinburgh, where he campaigned against lockdowns and COVID measures. When leaving a demonstration in Edinburgh, Paddy was arrested and charged with culpable and reckless conduct. An elected councillor, speaking on behalf of his electorate in the open and fresh air, then dragged through the court on what many believe to be spurious allegations. You might remember when my former colleague Benjamin Lockney travelled to Edinburgh in 2020 as part of the Fight the Fines campaign. What he found was harsh restrictions and a police force hell-bent on enforcing the pointless rules. It's been 2 long years and the Rebel News legal team has been fighting on Paddy's behalf every step of the way. Legal fees don't come cheap, and we've got Paddy this far with your help. But the case isn't over. So please, head over to savepaddy.co.uk, share his story, and where you can, chip in. So that's why I've come to Glasgow, more specifically Glasgow Green, the home of the Glasgow anti-lockdown movement, where those who oppose the COVID hysteria would regularly meet and march and let their voices known. More importantly, one of them is Paddy Hogg, the man with me now. Paddy, tell me about your arrest. Actually, it wasn't here, it was actually in Edinburgh. What can you tell us about that?
It was 10th of September 2020, seems long ago now, and it was after 2 rallies that we organised. The first was on 5th of September, which was huge. There was at least 2,500 people turned up. That was the first event, and it was put together by lots of us, right? I think it was 12 different groups from all over Scotland, from Inverness, Aberdeen, Perth, Dundee, Falkirk, obviously Edinburgh, and Glasgow. So this here was basically where the movement started, across here at Glasgow Green. And we coordinated that together. And during the big 5th of September rally, we had Professor Dolores Cale speaking, Dr. Malcolm Kendrick, and Professor Richard Enos, and members of the movement. And it was all very democratically put together. There wasn't one person that did that. And then we had another small event on the Thursday, and it was after that I was arrested. So the main charges against me just now are that I am meant to have been the organiser. There was dozens of people who organised it on the 5th of September, and that threatened people's lives through spreading the virus. So I've been put on what they call petition or solemn level, which means it's trial by jury. 15 members of the public will decide whether I am guilty or not, and I think that one of the charges mentions culpable and reckless behaviour. Now, as someone who studied the science, culpable and reckless is like someone who's a complete idiot or someone who doesn't have any regard for anyone at all. Before lockdown even started, I'd done a 47-minute video on how to boost your immune system. I was taking all this stuff serious at that time, and through caring for others, having been a psychiatric nurse, I wanted to protect people from the fear. I was seriously concerned that so many people would die because of the pressures people were under. People were cracking up, and I was aware of this, so that was my first indignation to go and speak out, because I'd heard there'd been some people gathering here, and I came along, and it just happened, I think, because I was a local politician, people were like, there was a bit of criticism about that, but I felt as though I had a moral duty to speak out and say my piece, and then some of it went viral, that I wasn't aware of that, and suddenly you're in the middle of no man's land,
So numerous people have been in courts for this sort of thing, but they've had their cases thrown out, yet they don't seem to be letting it go when it comes to Paddy Hogg. You've been in court countless times. Without the likes of rebel funding, where would you be? And more importantly, why you? Why?
Well, who knows? No point having a persecution complex. I mean, I'm hugely grateful for the amazing help and lifeline from Rebel News and for particularly financial support. I'm not a moneyed person. It's never been, my God, I don't, just money doesn't mean that much to me. But when you don't have it and suddenly you've got to pay what would be astronomical fees, it's like, it's shocking. And it's a lot of pressure. But when the state decides to arrest and charge you and put you on petition level, which means as a jury, and you need a QC or KC to defend you, it is unbelievable pressure they put on you. So that side is not easy to cope with, but it's not about me. This is about everybody else. I'm a parent, I've got kids, and that passion, unless you've got kids, most people don't understand it. If you've got kids, you stand up for their future, and it's them that counts, It's not about me, it's about everybody else, because what are we? We're sociable animals, human beings, we're sociable creatures. And it's your love for your fellow man and women that counts. If you don't have that compassion in your life, and you can't express it, what freedom have we got?
So QCs they're not cheap. And the sort of, the sort of process you're going through really isn't cheap. How has the likes of Rebel helped you and other people in terms of fighting the fines?
Pretty simply, this is a lifeline. I don't know if I could have coped with the stress, because you get to my age and think, I was never about money, never about anything to do with ambition for money, wealth, or for me, myself, or positions, anything at all. So a complete lifeline, absolute lifetime. I cannot express my thanks enough to the gaffer back in Canada and you guys for the support you have given so many people. I mean, and I wasn't aware, because I'd never really been in court for anything in my life before. I had no idea how expensive it was, and it's pretty scary the power the Crown has got when they just basically put their foot on your neck. And it's a means of saying, you're silent, pal. You're out of the way. You're one of these troublemakers. You can see the tradition going right back to Henry Dundas, basically the dictator in the 1780s and 90s in Scotland. Seek out the troublemakers and silence them. So if I've been a troublemaker and we end up winning our freedoms back, which are being threatened just now, then I did it for other people. And that's the only thing that really matters, Stand up for what's right. And I think we do have to stand up for each other, and we've got to get out there and march and continue doing so. I mean, they're basically trying to silence me by this whole process. I was banned from going to any rallies or discussions, gatherings for many months in 2020, but then they release you from bail and you're given some human rights back. Well, I'm going to keep those human rights. So I'm a biographer of Robert Burns, so it's just Burns Day, so quite appropriate to see in Burns Day. He said he would be writing sedition till his last moments, and so will I. And what he meant by that was the pro-democracy movement, and there was a large pro-democracy movement here. Well, we're still a pro-democracy movement, and that indomitable spirit of human nature will continue, because we will not be broken and be made into slaves.
Well, Paddy, thank you very much, and all the best with your day in court. If you admire Paddy Hogg, a man who's being punished for his principles, one of many the police are trying to persecute simply for standing up for what they believe in and democratic rights. If you admire him that much and you want to help, please head over to savepaddy.co.uk, share his story, and if you can, please help fund the legal fees, because you never know, one day it could be your story we're telling and your legal fight we are funding. savepaddy.co.uk. Thank you. If you admire everything Paddy's done and you want to get this ridiculous case thrown out of court, please head over to savepaddy.co.uk, share his story, but most importantly, chip in where you can. Thank you very much.